Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sara Gonzalez. We are joined once again by Mr. Jeremy Dys, religious liberty lawyer at First Liberty. Thank you so much for being here again.
Great to be back. Thanks for having me.
I love your tie.
Thank you.
And
are you just saying that because I'm not wearing a tie? Is that what you're doing?
Holding the standards up. Just bringing the standards up, brother.
It's an indictment against us.
Yeah, it was.
Well,
you're not wearing one either, just so you know.
I was going to say it feels like another special guest is here because Stu Bergier has been gone so long.
Yes, well, thank you.
We actually forgot that you were on the show.
Yes.
And so it felt like it was just a special guest.
Like 4 days, I think. But I am that insightful that you wouldn't necessarily. You're going to notice when I leave.
How was your vacation?
I can't remember how to speak. That's number one. But it was fun, and I'm back for a few days, and excited about that.
Yes.
To leave again on Monday and not be here for Memorial Day. So
I thought you meant you were excited to be back.
Oh no. I'm excited that we're close to Memorial Day.
Okay, what's the top story?
I want to talk about things that are really important but boring, and why we have to occasionally focus on them.
Oh, but so we're going to be bored when we listen to you?
I'm going to try to bore you.
Okay.
I'm going to do my best.
Not, okay, all right.
I couldn't remember how to do the show, and that's not it, is it? It's the other way around, isn't it?
And that's obviously the biggest story of the day, because I'm going to talk about something really boring, too.
Okay.
Boring, but important.
You guys are killing me. Jeremy.
Well, I'll save it for you because I think mine is both exciting and important.
Ooh.
So we're going to be talking about what we call the holy water case, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
Ooh, all right. Can't wait. First, we want to thank our sponsor, American Financing. Now Stu is back, and I can use the phrase that I like to use for American Financing, which is that they are smart enough not to do business with Stu.
That is true. I was going to buy a house, and I did talk to American Financing, along with about 10 other mortgage companies, and I narrowed it down to them and one other company, and I wanted to do kind of a different, it's like a different type of mortgage. Some would call it a scam or a loan shark, but no, it was it was closer to the irresponsible loans that caused the housing crisis, and they were like, yeah, we don't do those things. We kind of saw and learned. But they actually, I thought what was interesting about it is they actually told me to say, look, I know what you're trying to do here, and that's not really what we do. So, if you want that deal, I think you should go with the other company. It's like for a company to be able to say that to a client is, despite what Sara would say, that they just didn't like me, it's a big thing, and it's a lot of it's because they're on salary. They don't have to worry about the commission situation. So they don't mind if they think you can do better somewhere else, they'll send you there. And I got to say, too, they really had the best, overall deal. I mean, they really did. So they're great people to work with, and I would definitely recommend them.
You can go to AmericanFinancing.net, or you can call 800-906-2440. All right, Stu, bore us.
Okay. So they just did a thing about the highest priorities for the election. And of course, obviously, at the very bottom, almost all the time, is climate change. It's always last, even among Democrats.
Well, I mean, that's surprising to me because we are going to die in 11 and a half years.
We are.
So you would think that it would be higher as a priority.
Oh,
that's right.
Of course. But at the second to the bottom was global trade. And global trade is an incredibly boring topic that people, you just say the word tariff, and just watch people's eyes glaze over. I think it is actually really, really important. And we've talked about it before. I mean, global trade and free trade has been one of the biggest things driving billions of people being lifted out of poverty. I mean, it's been a miracle worker, really, in many ways. But it's interesting that because it is kind of back in the conversation, and it's something that we kind of I thought had sorted out for a while. And it's interesting to see how the media deals with it. So let me take you back now to kind of set the stage here to an incredible documentary you may remember from about 20 or 30 years ago. And you'll know this piece of video very, very well. You've definitely seen it before, but you may have forgotten what they were actually talking about. Let's watch this.
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression.
Now, if you're watching that clip,
Wow.
you laugh. Well, you laugh about, of course, about the blank stares at the teacher, and that's the point, right? Like the speech is specifically designed to be the most boring speech possible. But what it's actually about is the fact that when they raised tariffs, it pushed us deeper into the Great Depression. And you know, it's funny because I think a lot of these topics, and I think this happens with so many different things, the economic arguments for trade are pretty freaking boring. I mean, it's just like, who wants to talk about whether tariffs are being raised or not? But there is that sort of exciting part of it, which is like, war with China, right? Like there's this other side of the world, and we can go back and forth, and we can elevate it to this situation where, it's us versus them, and there's this they're taking from us, and we're losing the trade disputes, and the trade deficit is getting higher and higher and higher. We have to take it, I think, at times back up and say, what is actually going on? Donald Trump is not saying, hey, I've got 5 pizzas for you and I'll trade them for your 6 bags of dog food. Like, that's not how global trade works. Global trade works by individual people and companies here in the United States and in China entering into mutually beneficial contracts, right? Like they're looking at the entire situation and saying, this will be good for us. And they are saying, this will be good for us. Now we're getting to a situation where governments are stepping into the middle of that process. And I think Donald Trump has done a lot of really good things. I would love to talk about some of the stuff he's done in the courts, which I think a lot of it has been great. I mean, even on the lower courts and religious liberty, I think he's been a really positive influence on that, which is, I don't know that I would have necessarily believed that at the beginning. Like I probably would have been definitely a doubter on that one. But the trade thing, he's really stuck by. And I think, so far, he's kind of been able to shield us from a lot of the damage of the trade stuff because his other economic policies have been positive. I was thinking about it as like, if it's like a football coach that just doesn't really focus on special teams. Well, if your offense and defense are good enough, like people are going to kind of not, they'll be able to brush that off. But eventually it starts doing real damage and you start losing games. They're now saying, the Chinese are preparing for a long, drawn-out fight. They're saying they're hinting that they're going to start threatening withholding rare earth minerals, which again, is there a more boring phrase than rare earth minerals? I don't think there is. But
again, that's really important, though.
It is really, really important. It's all of our technology. We need this for the entire new economy, basically. So I mean, there was some good signs as well, where Trump, while I was gone, signaled that he was going to get rid of the tariffs with Mexico and Canada on steel and aluminum. Mm-hmm. And I know you're really bored, and I could bring Ben Stein out here to talk about it, but these are good things. Like, if we can kind of go down that road and hopefully get over this hump, I mean, can you imagine what this economy we're doing if we didn't have this stuff going on? And there is this, I think, a path to, it makes you nervous. Like you start playing with this stuff enough, the overall economic success gets into danger, and then you're talking about a possibility of a President Joe Biden or a President Elizabeth Warren or President Kamala Harris. If he loses that economy, it's a real threat, because if you look at the way Trump, Trump's a very divisive figure. I think a lot of that's by his own design. He likes he likes those fights, and a lot of them can kind of get you pumped up, get your base pumped up. But the guy's got, an approval rating that's been about 45% this entire time. And if he loses that economy, which is the one area of approval rating where he really does well, even among moderates, even among some Democrats, he does well on his handle of the economy. That thing starts to crumble. I mean, we could be looking at, this would not be the bad part of it, but a Native American president in Elizabeth Warren. You could be talking about one of these people from the left who could be a real danger to the economy and do longer lasting damage. I would just hope the president comes to a point where he says, like, all right, we've done this, we've gotten, they can work out some deal, get what you can get, and let's turn this engine back on.
Yeah. Pat, you want to weigh in here?
Anyone want to weigh in? Anyone know the effects?
I think it's hard for a lot of the American people to understand why this is a bad thing, or that it is even a bad thing. And the other thing is, we don't talk enough about what the alternative is. So how do you fix the imbalance with China? How do you fix the fact that nothing is fair in this relationship with China? I mean, they're going to continue to price American products in China completely out of the market, where Chinese can't afford them. So.
Yeah, I think that's true. And that's kind of what I was talking about when it comes to looking at this as like a big country trading with another country. It's like, if you are a country that needs to do trade, you want to import products, you are making that decision whether you think it's fair or not. You are, not the government. You're able to do it. You're your own company, and you get to say, you know what, I'd rather have it from Bangladesh, or I'd rather have it from Mexico for a little bit more, or rather have it from America for a lot more.
Way
probably.
more.
Right. Like that is, your decision, and I think a lot of times we get the government in the middle of this to try to manage it. Like if something is unfair, then people don't have to do business with China. No one's required to buy a Chinese product. You get to, as an individual company, make those decisions. And if you think it's not fair, then you don't. You can get it from somewhere else, with the exception of rare earth minerals, which you can't really get from anywhere else.
They're rare.
Yeah, they're very rare. And, so I just think that there's focusing on it less on, hey, this is a big country and we're going back, lowering a trade deficit. I mean, we've seen over and over again economically that makes no difference. It's actually usually a bad sign if you're winning the trade deficit. It's just not the way that works. So I hope that there's a path we can just get back to it. I mean, I think Trump, it's one of these things he really believes, so I don't think he's going to be moved on it very easily.
Yeah.
Another thing I think we need to do is, there's the control of the language, you can control the culture. And one of the things we need to do is talk about what a tariff really is, and it's a tax on consumers.
Yeah.
It's a tax on the products that we're going to buy at the grocery store and elsewhere. And so, if the American people could look at it as if you're in favor of a tariff, you're in favor of a tax on the things you're going to go to the store and buy.
Yeah.
I mean, go
ahead.
Just quickly, income inequality, they make this argument all the time. Modern, when it comes to American, dealings, like the Democrats say, hey, it's unfair. These two things are unfair, and you guys aren't doing it right, so we're going to step in and increase taxes to make it fair. It's the same argument with trade, and for whatever reason, now Republicans are making it. And I think it's just because there's these passion sort of issues over these giant, Republican, Democrat, Trump, China, U.S., all these big things. When you think about the little things of what these transactions are, they're really positive.
Yeah. Jeremy, last word on
trade. Hey, I love the fact that we brought in Ferris Bueller to talk about a really important topic. I one time used Ernest Goes to Camp to describe a religious land use situation, so we're tracking. Fantastic. Look, this is a boring topic, and most Americans are with you, Stu, or Pat. Come on, guys. You got name tags next time. But what is a tariff? Nobody knows what that word is. It's like one of the last vestiges of the 18th century that we keep using in our common language nowadays. But you're right, it is a tax, and it's something that we ought to be very cautious about imposing upon for the exact reasons that both of you have said. I will say, though, that I think in one positive sense, at the very least, what my gut tells me the president is attempting to do, whether this is the right thing or the wrong thing, he's trying to reset things in terms on the global stage, but especially with China. They've clearly engaged in some very dubious activity with the American economy. I have a good friend actually right here down the street, as a matter of fact, who's got a business that's going to take it on the chin, frankly, with these tariffs. But he's even saying this is needed, this is necessary, this has to happen for the future of the rest of our businesses. This needs to be reset. And so for that matter, I'm in support right now, but let's not let this get out of hand, because that could be a real problem.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look back through history, tariffs really, even if you could try to make the argument, well, they may have helped here, well, overall, they've always ended up hurting, the economy more than it's helped anything.
Well, let's not forget that this is still kind of in the beginning stages. The trade talks are still, no one's pushed back from the table. There's just been a bit of a, hold on, status quo is no more status quo. We've got to have a reset here and figure out where the leverage is, and I think this has provided the necessary leverage to have those talks, and I think it's starting to work.
Yeah. All right, well, we will see, and when we come back, we'll get to the next boring topic from Pat. We'll be back.
And I'll try to make it as boring as possible.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Downgrade.
Thank you.
I'll say
all right, so next spring, there's a really amazing cruise taking place along the Eastern Mediterranean. And I believe, Stu, you're going on it.
I am going on it. They've allowed me on the ship.
I can't believe, I mean, that seems like that would be a setback for them to
Seems to me that all of your
tickets.
commercial pitches are just making fun of me, which I don't understand exactly how that happened. I am definitely the lowest piece of interest on this trip. I'm going just because I think it's going to be amazing. You're the one that was encouraging that behavior. No, but I mean, Glenn's going to be there, Bill O'Reilly's going to be there, David Barton's going to be there, Rabbi Lappin's going to be there. But really, none of the people are the real attraction here. We're talking about going to the foundation of basically everything that's made us a civilization, from faith to commerce to everything. I mean, it's Croatia,
Italy,
Greece, Israel. I mean, it's going to be amazing. I think it's 2 weeks, but I mean, and on an amazing ship with all the amenities and lots of good Italian food.
And just all of the history that is in all of those places. So
And
it's 14 days. Okay, and Italian food.
Mm-hmm. Real Italian food, like from an Italian cruise company. Like we're going to take it from Italy. This is going to be amazing.
So Stu is looking forward to the food.
Yes, mainly.
But everyone else can look forward to all of the history that you can see there. And what a lineup of people to see it with. These are the history buffs. I mean, can you imagine going to Israel with Glenn Beck? He's going to talk your ear off about every single thing.
Yeah, he's going to be asking Rabbi Lapin questions is what's going to be happening.
Oh,
and David
yes.
Barton. Those two are going to be
yeah, they're just all going to be, but I mean, who better to spend that time with?
And we're doing shows and stuff too, so it's, there's a lot of cool interaction. It's going to be a really cool trip.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you can go to comesailaway.com to learn more. There's a bunch of different details and different packages that you can choose from. Bring the kids, bring the grandkids, and find more information out at comesailaway.com. Pat, another boring topic, you say?
Yes, the Electoral College, which I think people's eyes glass over when you mention those two words as well. But
Do you have a Ferris Bueller clip to explain it?
I don't. So you win, and I'm done.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if people understand how important the Electoral College is.
They don't understand what it is, I think, to begin with.
And it's critical to our survival as a republic. If we get rid of the Electoral College, you may never have a Republican voted into office in a national election again, because the Democrats control virtually all of the big population centers, and those will be the only places that matter anymore in a popular vote. I've got a map that this is really kind of cool how they illustrated what happens if we get rid of the Electoral College, and there it is. And by the way, Nevada, as it just says, just voted for the national popular election. So they are the 16th municipality. So 15 states and the District of Columbia have all voted this way now.
This is getting
16.
scary.
They're at 195 electoral votes. They need to get to 270.
Wow.
And then you can do away with the Electoral College. But you see the influence of California, Texas, Florida, and New York, and then all the dwarf states that are just virtually non-existent almost don't matter at all. And that would be disastrous for the United States.
When I first heard, who was the first one to do it? Colorado? Or some place, I want to say maybe it was Colorado, but the first place that did it, you think like, oh, okay, whatever. You guys are trying to make waves and get some publicity and settle down. Nothing else is going to happen. And now it's really taken off. It's starting to get a little bit scary.
Now it's 15 states and D.C. It's pretty serious.
Yeah, and the important number, too, is the electoral vote count, which we think
275.
That's
right?
270
to win. They're up to 195.
195.
Right. And so they do have to
That's
get through a couple of red
terrifying.
states to get to 270, which is not going to be easy. But I mean, the way they're doing this is constitutionally it says that basically gives the states the rights to how they award these electoral college votes. So they're not going to necessarily abandon the Electoral College. They're just going to say
they won't get a constitutional amendment to undo the Electoral College.
They're just going to say
do an end round.
Whoever wins the national popular vote, we give our Electoral College votes to.
Yeah.
So it would nullify essentially the Electoral College. And it's pretty scary. I mean, even more than Republican versus Democrat, it would be city versus rural. I mean, you'd have candidates who would only campaign to cities. You'd have candidates. There'd be no reason to go. Why are you going to go to a farm? What does a farmer matter in that situation?
Nobody's going to Iowa anymore.
Right.
No one cares.
Or New Hampshire.
Yeah.
South Carolina.
So it really would do severe damage and would make it so all of the policies would be based on city what people in urban areas want, which. I mean, it's just, that's the reason why they came up with this, is to protect specifically against it. And this is sort of like an end round around the Electoral College.
Yeah, Jeremy, you want to
I think
jump
it's just the Sour Grapes Act. I mean, they've had a couple elections in which the popular vote has not resounded with the Electoral College, and that's it. We obviously can't win by just the popular vote anymore. We've got to go and do something else. Well, there's a good reason why that restraint was put there by the by the Founding Fathers, is to say, you've got to go talk to everybody. You just can't talk to your friends. And you can't just be the most popular kid on campus. You've got to go get the people who may actually disagree with you and convince them as to the rightness of your position. So this has worked really well for our let's remind ourselves what we are, our republic.
Yes.
Wait, we're not a democracy?
Yes, we're a democracy within a republic, and this is part of that republicanism that we find ourselves in today. And that's what's really passing from our scene right now, is less the Electoral College and socialism and tariffs and whatever other boring topics out there, but the boring, important topic of structure of our government. This was a beautiful thing. It may be the very worst form of government, but it's better than all the rest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a coincidence, Pat, that they've stopped teaching history, really, and now all of a sudden these things are happening because people don't understand why they were put in place.
Nor is it a coincidence that they continually call us a democracy, because they want to beat that into people's heads because they're trying to bring up a direct vote on a national basis for President of the United States. And they fooled the people pretty well into thinking that would be a great thing, because everybody thinks democracy is great. Well, democracies fail.
Yeah, well, let's
every
point that
time.
out, because actually it was just this week that Anthony Kennedy, the now retired Justice of the Supreme Court, I can't remember what event he was at, but he was lauding the virtues of democracy and kind of poo-pooing Plato and Aristotle and those who had come up or kind of disparaged the principles of democracy. He says America can do it all better. Well, really? Because I seem to remember this vote that took place in California that the Supreme Court, through 9 justices, and really only 4 or 5 of them, decided to invalidate the vote of millions of Americans on the issue of same-sex marriage. That's not a democratic principle at all. That is an oligarchy at that point. So there's, again, a reason why we put our structure in place to say, we're going to run things through a democratic process, but we're going to create an actual system, a government that rules things. We will hold them accountable through the democratic process, and there's where the democracy comes in, but we're not a pure, directly to the people type of democracy, and that's exactly why.
Nor were we meant to be. We're not supposed to be.
Yeah. Amen. All right, back in a minute.
Is that a prayer?
All right, Jeremy, I know that you have got a case that you're going to tell us about that is going to be super exciting and not boring.
Sorry.
But tell us about First Liberty.
Well, First Liberty is the nation's largest legal organization dedicated exclusively to defending religious liberty. We work to defend religious liberty within the houses of worship, within our military, the public square, and within our schools as well. So all we do is go around the country suing those who are the right people to sue for giving grief to those who are trying to freely exercise their religious beliefs. As one good example, we're waiting right now for the Supreme Court to issue a decision. We represent the American Legion. It was a great client to represent before the Supreme Court of the United States, right? We kind of went up there and said, Your Honors, we represent the American Legion, and we rest. But the American Legion built a memorial to World War I veterans back in 1925 is when they erected it. It was actually the brainchild of some Gold Star mothers who in 1919 wanted to erect this to the 49 sons they had lost in Prince George's County, Maryland from World War I. Some atheists believe that memorial, because it's in the shape of a Celtic cross, mimicking the gravestones of the men who were buried, remembered by this memorial, needs to come down. In fact, the Fourth Circuit even said, well, maybe we should just chop the arms off of this memorial and that'll solve the entire problem. We think that is absurd and certainly not what the Establishment Clause requires of us all. And so we've made that case to the Supreme Court, and our hope is that by the end of June, when they go on recess, we're going to have an opinion that brings some clarity to this area of the Establishment Clause that Justice Thomas has repeatedly called is in hopeless disarray. And it's a very difficult area to practice. But at the base minimum, we've got to preserve that memorial to those. And I mean, look, that's just miles away from Arlington, where if that memorial's got to be knocked down, so does the the Argonne Cross, the Canadian Cross of Sacrifice. The Tomb of the Unknown has to be erased because of that language on the side of it all. Even Ted Kennedy's gravestone is a cross, and that might have to be knocked down over there. And that just sets a bulldozer loose across the country doing these things. So we're not going to allow that to happen. But that's just one of many cases we're working all over the country right now to preserve and defend religious liberty in this country.
I appreciate the ballsiness and just being like, yeah, we sue people who should be sued. That's it. Because a lot of people might want to tiptoe around that whole, like, well, we sue a lot. You're just like, no, we sue them. We don't care.
Our forebears fought a war. We can at least go into court.
Yeah. All right, well, I can't wait to hear. This case happened in Texas?
In Magnolia, Texas, right. And it ties in perfectly with what we've just been talking about, but it's much more exciting.
Okay, so you got to tune in, blazetv.com, and make sure that you are a subscriber so that you can hear this. And we will be right back with you in overtime.
Bueller.